I found the charger hidden under her gym bag. Not a phone. Not a note. Just the charger. My heart knew before my mind did. She smiled at me that night like nothing had changed. I kissed her forehead and tasted the lie. Days later, I watched her step into his apartment without even looking back. My hands shook. My world tilted. But I said nothing. I smiled. I planned. Because what she stole from me was far bigger than love. And when the truth finally came out, it was not just her who lost everything. It was me who took it back. It started small, almost too small to notice. A few comments offhand at first. "You should think about getting back to the gym," Allison said one morning while pouring her coffee, her tone light but sharp around the edges. She didn't meet my eyes. "Might help you sleep better." I told myself not to overthink it. We'd been married 8 years. Long enough for little irritations to rub raw, for honesty to get clumsy. Still, the comment stuck. It wasn't about health. It was about me, about something missing. In the following weeks, she said other things. "Maybe you should update your style a little. That shirt's seen better days. Ever think about trying one of those meal plans? You know, just to feel better." She smiled when she said it, casual, affectionate even, but something had shifted beneath the surface. It felt like I was being slowly pushed away, reshaped into someone else. Someone she might still want. At first, I thought it was just her. A phase. Maybe she was feeling restless, getting older. Maybe I was paranoid. I reminded myself that people change. Marriages adapt. But then, other things started piling up. She suddenly became obsessed with working out. Really obsessed. Early morning runs, late night sessions at the gym. Brand new leggings and sports bras arriving almost daily in sleek little packages she tossed on the kitchen counter like afterthoughts. Her body changed, too, leaner, sharper, as if she were chasing some image I didn't know she'd ever wanted. What gnawed at me wasn't just the change, it was how secretive she became. Passwords on her phone. Turned screens. Phone calls taken outside. One night, when she thought I was asleep, she tiptoed out of the bedroom to take a call on the back patio. "I can't talk now," I heard her hiss, voice tight. I lay there, frozen, heart hammering against the mattress. Still, I said nothing. I loved her. I wanted to believe in her. But a week later, while searching for my earbuds in her gym bag, something I used to do without a second thought, I found it. A second charger. Identical to the one already plugged into her side of the bed, brand new, still warm like it had been used. No second phone that I could find. But that charger, hidden deep beneath her folded gym towels, sang louder than any accusation. I sat on the edge of our bed, holding it, feeling like the ground was tilting beneath me. Maybe there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe. I set it back carefully, exactly as I'd found it. I zipped the bag, pretending I hadn't seen anything, pretending my heart wasn't unraveling. That night, while she slept beside me, breathing slow, peaceful, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan slicing the darkness into slow, spinning lines. Memories crowded me, our wedding day, her smile as we moved into this house, the first time she called it home. I wanted so badly to believe I was imagining things, that the woman I loved wasn't slipping away from me. But I wasn't a fool, and I wasn't going to confront her half-blind, shouting into the wind. If the cracks were real, I was going to find them, map them, before the whole damn thing collapsed, quietly. Methodically, without warning her. Because love didn't mean letting yourself drown blind. The next morning, before she even woke up, I ordered a GPS tracker. The tracker arrived 2 days later in a plain brown package, no branding, no instructions beyond a folded sheet of paper that promised discretion and battery life for up to 30 days. I sat in the garage that evening, the door half-cracked open to the fading sunset, staring at the device in my hand. It felt heavier than it should have. Attaching it was almost too easy. She'd parked the SUV outside after another late session at the gym. While she was upstairs showering, singing, even some mindless pop song that stabbed at my nerves, I slipped under the back bumper and clicked the magnetized tracker into place. It took less than 10 seconds. 10 seconds to admit I didn't trust her anymore. The guilt came later. It sat with me through dinner, where she chattered about a new smoothie recipe she wanted to try. It sat with me through the way she kissed me goodnight, light, perfunctory, the way someone kisses a coworker after a long day. And it stayed with me the next morning when I checked my phone before I even got out of bed. At 6 a.m. sharp, the tracker's app showed her driving toward the gym, or so it seemed. She sent a text around 6:15. Killer session this morning? Feel amazing. Home soon. I stared at the little red dot on the map. It wasn't at the gym. It was parked 3 blocks west, near a cluster of expensive apartments overlooking the parkway. I didn't confront her. I made coffee. I smiled when she walked in, flushed and glowing, hair still damp from a shower somewhere I couldn't quite place. I listened to her babble about planks and push-ups. I nodded. I laughed where I needed to. Inside, something cold and mechanical clicked into place. By that night, I knew I needed more than location pings. I needed proof no one could spin into misunderstanding. The next phase of my investigation had to be smarter. I thought back to something a friend, an accountant, of all things, had once told me over beers. If you really want to catch someone lying, follow the money. People are lazy with their secrets when they think you're not looking. So after Allison went to bed, I cracked open the laptop we shared. Passwords were saved automatically, a blessing born from her carelessness, or maybe just from the years of blind trust we built before all this rot set in. The gym charges were all there, same as always, but tucked between standard monthly dues was something strange. Multiple large payments logged separately, labeled Private Session Package, at nearly $250 each, twice a week, every week for months. She'd never mentioned private sessions. In fact, when I'd once joked that her trainer must be getting rich off you, she'd brushed it off. Nah, it's all group stuff, way cheaper, she had said, waving a hand, laughing too loudly. The laugh sounded different now, warped in memory. I sat back in my chair, letting the screen's cold glow paint the walls. It wasn't proof yet, not the kind you can shove across a lawyer's desk, but it was enough. Enough to crush the naive part of me that still whispered maybe, maybe. The next few days blurred together. Each morning, she kissed me goodbye, gym bag slung over her shoulder, bright-eyed, athletic, somehow younger. Each morning, I watched the tracker steer away from the gym. Same apartment complex, same 2-hour window, same return home, humming like she just finished yoga and green smoothies. Every word she spoke dripped with acid now, sweet on the surface but corroding the trust underneath. Still, I said nothing. Strategy demanded patience. On Thursday night, after she went to sleep, I took a greater risk. I remembered that our old iPad, long abandoned in a kitchen drawer, had once been linked to her iCloud account. I dug it out, dusted it off, charged it. And when it powered on, it was like opening a window into a world she thought she'd hidden. Messages, photos, even GPS-tagged selfies she'd forgotten to unsync. Most were innocuous. Gym playlists, group texts with friends. But there, threaded between workout memes and smoothie recipes, was a name I hadn't expected to see so often. Mark, the trainer. Mark, who apparently was pushing her limits in ways that made her send strings of heart emojis and blushing faces I hadn't seen from her in years. There weren't full confessions yet, no explicit texts, but there were fragments. Enough for any man paying attention to know where the current was pulling. Next time, same place? Can't wait to see you. Still sore from yesterday but worth it. You're seriously the best part of my day. I stared at those words, the betrayal not quite stated, but loud enough to drown out the silence of our house. That night I didn't sleep. I lay there, watching her breathe beside me, wondering how much of the life we built together was real, and how much was already rubble beneath a collapsing facade. I closed my eyes, heart a stone in my chest. The real confrontation could wait. But now, I knew what I was hunting. And I was nowhere near finished. I chose Saturday. She said she was meeting the girls for a Pilates class and brunch after. I smiled, kissed her forehead, wished her fun. Then I waited. 15 minutes after she left, I followed. Not close. Far enough that she wouldn't notice the dark blue rental car I'd picked up the night before. No traceable plates. No risk. The GPS tracker led me straight to the same apartment complex. No gym bags. No smoothies. Just her car, tucked neatly in a visitor space, and her walking up the concrete steps, not to the fitness center, not to a brunch, but to the second floor. She didn't knock. The door swung open before she even raised her hand. Mark stood there, casual, cocky in a sleeveless hoodie, his hands sliding naturally, intimately, to the small of her back as he pulled her inside. The doors shut behind them. I stayed frozen in the rental, fingers locked around the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. There it was. Confirmation, in flesh and breath and casual familiarity. Not some late-night paranoia. Not just flirty texts or misread hints. Real. Ugly. Immediate. My mind spun, fighting against the new gravity pulling everything apart. A flash. Our first date, cheap beers and pizza, her laughing so hard she snorted, pretending to be embarrassed but loving it. The way she'd leaned across the table, brushed my hand, whispered, "I don't play games. If I ever stop feeling it, I'll tell you. I promise." Another flash. Standing at the altar, her hand trembling in mine as she said, "I will never lie to you. Not ever." The echoes of those promises seemed to ring louder than the thud of my heart against my ribs. I stayed an hour. Long enough to see the lights dim behind the curtains. Long enough to see Mark walk her to the window, kiss her forehead like she was something precious, something earned. I didn't take pictures. Not then. I wasn't thinking tactically yet. I was just surviving the impact. Eventually, I drove away. Not back home. I needed somewhere to think. I ended up at the edge of town, at an old service station we'd stopped at once during a road trip years ago. I remembered how she'd made me pose next to the rusted Route 66 sign, how she'd laughed until tears spilled over nothing at all. That woman was gone. Or maybe she never existed the way I thought. By the time I made it home, she was already back, freshly showered, flipping through Netflix like nothing had happened. "Hey, babe," she said, glancing up, her face open. "Easy? I was thinking Thai food tonight?" The casual cruelty of it made me want to laugh, or scream, or both. Instead, I smiled. "Sounds good," I said. My voice was steady. My hands were steady. Because now I knew. And when you know for sure, the power shifts. Not all at once. Not like flipping a switch. But the crack inside you stops feeling like a wound. It starts feeling like a doorway. That night, while she slept, curled up, trusting, oblivious, I sat on the back porch with a legal pad and a beer, mapping out everything I would need for what came next. Surveillance, financial records, legal strategy, emotional armor. I would not be caught unprepared. I would not let rage ruin my aim. If she wanted a war, she'd find out exactly what it meant to lose something built in love and burned down in betrayal. One move at a time. The plan was simple. Gather enough to destroy any chance she had of cornering me later, in court, in public, anywhere. No messy fights. No shouting matches. Just cold, hard proof. By Monday, I'd already taken the first steps. I spent the day pulling every bank statement, every credit card bill, every account we'd shared. Years of financial history laid out on my laptop, each transaction like a breadcrumb trail. At first, it was all routine. Groceries, mortgage payments, weekend dinners. Then patterns started to emerge. Payments to companies I didn't recognize, all filed under vague names like Wellness Ventures and Balanced Lifestyle LLC. Tens of thousands spread over the past year. It didn't make sense. Until I dug deeper, and found the registration records for those LLCs. Both registered under Mark's name. Mark, her trainer. Mark, her partner in more ways than one. The pieces clicked with brutal simplicity. She hadn't just been sneaking around in parking lots and dark apartments. She'd been siphoning money out of our marriage, out of our future, and funneling it into Mark's business ventures. Ventures she'd never mentioned, never asked about, never invited me to be a part of. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, feeling the kind of rage that doesn't scream. It smolders. It hardens. This wasn't just emotional betrayal. This was financial war. Memories flooded back. 1,000 small conversations now burning in a new light. "We need to keep separate accounts, just for personal stuff, you know? I'm thinking about investing a little, nothing major. Don't stress about the savings. We're doing fine." She'd been laying the groundwork for months, maybe longer. Building a life I wasn't meant to be part of. Building an exit I wasn't supposed to see coming. And I hadn't. I was too busy trusting her. Too busy being proud of what we'd built to notice the termites hollowing out the walls. Later that night, when she was curled on the couch texting, no doubt feeding lies to Mark, arranging their next stolen hour, I watched her from the kitchen. She looked normal, beautiful, even, her legs tucked under her, her hair messy from a fake. Hard day, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just the quiet certainty that she wasn't my wife anymore. She was a stranger in the skin of someone I used to love. Still, the real blow came the next morning. I sat with our financial advisor, a man I'd known since my first job out of college, a man who'd watched our accounts grow year after year. He was professional but blunt. "There's a significant amount missing from your joint investments. Withdrawals started about 10 months ago." I asked if it could be reversed. He shook his head. "Not without a legal fight. And even then, it depends on how the accounts were structured. If she claimed it for personal investment, it'll be messy." Messy. The word rattled around my skull. I left his office with a single thought burning through the fog. She didn't just want Mark. She was building a life without me, and she was willing to destroy me to do it. That night, after she left for another late session, I opened her laptop, the one she thought was locked. It wasn't. There, in a tucked-away email account she hadn't logged out of, was everything. Emails to Mark. Plans to open a new studio. Talk about relocating. Talk about what to do with the house. Talk about making a clean break before it gets too messy. Before it gets messy. They'd been planning to leave me twisted in the wreckage. Grieving. Blind. Broke. I sat there for a long time, reading their plans like some grotesque novel where I was just an obstacle to be quietly erased. It should have broken me. But instead, something inside me solidified. A new kind of vow. She wanted a clean break? I was going to make sure the break shattered her. I spent the next 2 weeks living a double life. By day, I was the same man Allison thought she knew, steady, reliable, a little distracted maybe, but nothing she would question. By night, I became something else, colder, sharper, focused. I met with lawyers, 3 different ones, before settling on a bulldog of a divorce attorney named Marianne Torres. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. After I laid out the situation, the affair, the financial theft, the hidden investments, she tapped her pen against her legal pad and said flatly, "We're going to bury her." I didn't smile. I didn't even nod. I just said, "Tell me what you need." Over the following days, Marianne built the foundation of the coming battle, filing for divorce under grounds of adultery and financial misconduct. Subpoenas for all financial records tied to both LLCs. Emergency motions to freeze joint assets until division. Plans to file public disclosure petitions that would expose the fraud if Allison resisted settlement. Every conversation was crisp, tactical. Every document filed was another bullet loaded into the chamber. Still, despite the clarity of action, loneliness gnawed at the edges of every day. One afternoon, while grabbing coffee before another meeting with Marianne, an old coworker, Davis, spotted me. He smiled, clapped me on the back, launched into some story about his latest home renovation nightmare. I smiled, laughed where I needed to. But somewhere mid-sentence, Davis stopped. He looked at me, really looked. "You good, man?" he asked, his voice softening. "You seem different." I opened my mouth, to lie, to say I was fine, to throw up the same mask I wore at home. But the words caught in my throat. I just shrugged. "Long couple of weeks." He nodded slowly, like he didn't believe me but respected the wall I'd built. "Well," he said finally, "if you ever need to grab a drink or wreck some drywall, you know where to find me." He clapped my shoulder again and walked off. And for the first time in days, something cracked inside me. Not enough to spill, not enough to weaken the structure I was building, but enough to remind me I was utterly alone in this. No one to lean on. No one to help carry the weight. Just me, a crumbling marriage, a paper trail of betrayal, and a quiet fury I had to manage like a wildfire behind glass. At home, Allison acted like everything was fine. Better than fine. She was chipper, affectionate even. Planning weekend getaways, talking about how we needed a fresh start. The irony almost made me laugh. She thought she was still in control, still managing the story, still steering the ship toward her hidden harbor. And I let her think that. I kissed her back when she kissed me. I smiled when she showed me new outfits she might wear for brunch with the girls. Inside, I was memorizing every false word, every fake smile. Building the case. Building the weapon. Waiting. On the night before the confrontation, I sat alone in the garage, surrounded by the tools I'd once used to build bookshelves, repair leaky sinks, fix broken chairs. Things husbands do. Things men do when they believe they're building something lasting. I stared at my hands, callous from work, scarred from old projects, and thought about all the things I'd tried to fix over the years. Some things, it turned out, couldn't be repaired. Some things had to be torn down to the foundation and left behind. The next morning, I woke up early. I watched her sleeping beside me, her face soft, relaxed, utterly untroubled. The anger was gone now. What replaced it was colder, purer resolve. Tonight, I would end this charade. Tonight, the real war would begin. I waited until after dinner. We sat at the kitchen table, empty plates between us, 2 glasses of red wine she'd suggested pairing with this special pasta she'd made. She talked about her day, about a possible girls' trip to the coast. She laughed at some meme on her phone and leaned across the table to show me, her hand brushing mine. I looked at her the way a man looks at something already dead and doesn't know it yet. When she finally leaned back, swirling her wine lazily, I spoke. "Allison," I said, voice even, steady, the way I might tell someone a bridge was out up ahead, and they were still speeding forward. "I know." She blinked. "Know what?" I didn't answer. I stood up, walked to the counter where I'd placed a plain manila envelope. I dropped it onto the table between us. It hit the wood with a quiet thud that sounded, somehow, final. She didn't move at first, just stared at it like it might bite her. When she finally opened it, her hands trembled, the first crack in her polished armor. Inside, photos from the GPS tracker logs, screenshots of her texts with Mark, bank records showing the siphoned funds, the LLC documents linking her and Mark directly. Evidence layered so densely there wasn't a corner left to hide in. She flipped through them, faster and faster, her breathing shallow. Then she looked up at me. Tears filled her eyes instantly, weaponized like a reflex. I can explain," she whispered. I said nothing. I didn't need to. The silence did the work. First came the denial. "It's not what it looks like. You're twisting things." Then the anger. "You've been spying on me? How dare you invade my privacy?" And then, finally, the collapse. The paper slipped from her fingers. She buried her face in her hands. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," she said between broken sobs. "I was confused. You were distant. I felt invisible." I watched her cry and felt nothing. Not pity. Not hatred. Not satisfaction. Just the cold detachment of a man watching someone else's play end long after he'd already left the theater. "I've filed for divorce," I said calmly. "The paperwork will be served tomorrow morning." Her head snapped up. "You're not serious," she said, horror blooming in her face. "We can fix this. We can go to therapy. Please, we can." "No," I said, final and immovable. "There's no fixing this." That night, she packed a small bag. She didn't argue when I said she needed to leave. She moved around the house like a ghost, pausing sometimes with an object in her hand, a photo frame, a throw blanket, like she was only just realizing none of it belonged to her anymore. At the door, she hesitated. "I loved you," she said, voice small. Maybe she had. Maybe in the same way you love a home before you set it on fire because you want a better view. I didn't answer. She stepped outside into the night. The door clicked shut behind her. And the house, our house, felt heavier than it ever had. The consequences unfolded fast. Word spread through her gym within a week. The trainer was fired. Gossip scorched every professional bridge she had. Friends we'd shared for years chose sides, and most of them chose silence. Silence was safer. The house stayed with me. The assets she hadn't stolen were frozen. The divorce moved forward at a pace that could only be called merciless. She tried to reach out a few times, emails, texts, the occasional phone call I let ring into oblivion. Each attempt came weaker than the last. At night, sometimes, I wandered the halls of the house, touched the walls, ran my fingers over the kitchen counters, sat on the cold porch steps, beer in hand, staring into the dark. It wasn't peace. Not yet. It was wreckage. But it was my wreckage. And I'd earned the right to rebuild it, alone if I had to. The first morning after she left, the house felt like an abandoned stage. But it was mine. Every empty, aching corner. In the weeks that followed, life didn't snap back into place. It staggered forward, one stubborn step at a time. I moved through the motions, meetings with lawyers, court dates, quietly closing joint accounts, selling what needed selling, repairing what could be salvaged. Some nights, I still caught myself setting 2 plates at dinner. Sometimes I reached across the bed in my sleep, forgetting that no one waited on the other side. But I learned to sit with it, not fight it, let it pass like a storm front. Somewhere around the 3rd month, I started running again. At first, it was just laps around the block, lungs burning, heart pounding like a fist against a locked door. But it helped. The physical pain was clean, honest, unlike the mess she'd left behind. I stripped the house down to its bones, sold the bedroom set we picked out together, repainted the living room, darker, heavier, stronger. Gutted the closet, throwing out the relics of a life I'd stopped living long before she left. Piece by piece, the house stopped being ours and started becoming mine. I took a short trip alone, just a few days up to the mountains, an old cabin I found online. No signal. No noise. Just trees creaking in the wind and my own breathing to keep me company. One night, sitting on the porch with a battered notebook in my lap, I made a list. Not of goals, not of things to fix. A list of things I loved, things I'd forgotten in the years spent propping up a crumbling marriage. Riding motorcycles, woodworking, old blues records played too loud, Sunday mornings with black coffee and no one talking. Simple things, solid things, things that didn't lie. When I got back, something in me had shifted. Not healed. Not yet. But the weight of her betrayal didn't feel like chains anymore. It felt like scars. Visible. Permanent. But part of me now, proof I'd survived. I started rebuilding. Slow. Careful. Not chasing distractions. Not rushing into new arms or fake futures. I reconnected with friends who hadn't picked sides, who didn't need explanations. I found new rhythms in the silence. I made peace with the hollow spaces she left behind. I even joined a local woodworking class, something I'd always said I didn't have time for when we'd been married. There, among the scent of fresh-cut cedar and the quiet focus of real craftsmanship, I found something better than revenge. Pride. Not the cheap kind that sneers at the past, but the quiet kind that says, I'm still standing. One evening, months later, I passed the old gym she used to haunt. It was closed now, a for lease sign drooping in the cracked window. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel sorry. I just felt lighter. Some endings aren't battles, they're releases. There's no perfect bow to tie this story together. No new woman waiting in the wings. No movie montage of sudden joy. Just a man, a house, a rebuilt life. Scars across the heart, some still tender, some already fading. And a future that's mine again. Pain taught me something love never could. You can survive anything once you stop waiting for someone else to save you. You save yourself, one steady step at a time.